SP.a-politicus Flor Koninckx is als internationaal waarnemer uitgestuurd naar de presidentsverkiezingen van Kazachstan. Voor Actua-TV stelt hij elke dag zijn persoonlijk logboek samen.
Zo hier in de vergaderzaal. Het is eigenlijk de eerste echte dag van mijn waarnemingsopdracht. Het is even koffiepauzes, gaan terug binnen. Ik moet zeggen, het is een zeer geladen programma. Een volgeladen programma moet ik zeggen. We hebben dus de hele namiddag vertegenwoordigers of echte presidentskandidaten in volgorde. Ze komen 4:30 naar hier toe.
Mijn antwoord is nu de leider van de communistische partij. Ook een van de oppositiepartijen uiteraard. Zeer nationaal gericht en blijkbaar ook tegenstanders van onze waarnemingsopdracht. Dus daar moeten we wel een beetje voorzichtig mee zijn met die man.
So the OSCE, what is it?
Well, Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. And we have been observing elections since the early 1990s. As time has gone on, the methodology has become more and more sophisticated. It is not simply observing election day, because we have learned from experience that elections are not just about election day. If you're going to cheat at an election, you can cheat all through the campaign. A group of 4 or 5 people will go out to that country, will interview the Prime Minister, the Foreign Minister, the Interior Minister, academics, non-governmental organizations, and they will have a feel, they will know the kind of observation mission that will be undertaken. And then they may say, oh look, we're not going to come. The election is going to be fine. Why do we want to go out to observe a country with a brilliant record of honest elections?
Like Belgium.
Like Belgium.
Mr. Zoftis, you are director of the Kazakhstan International Bureau for Human Rights and Rule for Law. One question. Do you think the elections here in Kazakhstan on the 4th of December will be honest and straight? Will be okay?
It depends on what we want to take as the criteria. If we will look at the voting day, maybe it will be relatively transparent, relatively free and relatively fair. Again, keeping a lot of doubts about the electronic system of voting. But if we look on the elections as the process, starting with the political climate for the opposition to express their views, to have the access to the public, to have the access to national-wide mass media, to promote their leaders and so on, it's absolutely clear that they have no such opportunity during last at least 4 years.
And what if your report will be negative?
Well,
what are the consequences?
It depends on the country. And I'm choosing my words very carefully. In Ukraine and in Georgia, the fraudulent election results led to massive demonstrations and the overthrow, peaceful overthrow, but the overthrow of the winner that people believed was not the winner. In Kyrgyzstan, it happened a few weeks later when there was the same process, but not immediately. I just don't know if that will happen. It's not our job. We are not observing elections to promote any political change or peaceful change. Our simple task, although it's not simple, is to determine whether the elections we have been observing meet international election standards. And that is all we do. Now, we will produce on Monday a report, an interim report. 6 weeks later, there will be a much longer report, and that will make a lot of recommendations. But the government is not compelled to follow our recommendations. So we merely say, look, we've observed your elections. These are the things that we have found that don't meet international standards. We strongly advise you to improve. We do it, the Council of Europe does it, There's a lot of inquiries, a lot of recommendations. It's up to the government to decide. If they don't want to accept our recommendations, if they want to continue having imperfect elections, that is their responsibility, and we have no powers of compulsion.
And is there a positive evolution since 1991? Is it going better and better?
No, I don't think so. Again, to some extent, the most liberal time, it was the beginning of 90s. The elections in the beginning of 90s were the most open, free and fair. Communist Party lost its power, and there was no replacement at that point. It was some kind of development of the power. Now the power became much more, the authorities are much more stronger, the ruling elite is much more stronger, and they use much more well-equipped leverages to deal with the elections. In the beginning of 90th, we have much more independent mass media, and today there was a question about Mr. Sergei Duvanov, well-known Kazakhstani journalist, who at the beginning of 90th created a first independent TV channel, really independent. Now there is no any independent TV channels in the country. There are private, but not independent.
The Belgian people mostly think that international observers, they are going on holiday for 3 days.
It's no holiday. You arrive a couple of days before, often in the middle of the night or very early in the morning. You arrive maybe at 6 in the morning, your first meeting is at 9. You go through 2 or 3 days of briefings. On the day of the election, you're up at 5 to get to the polling station, to see it opened. You're there until 8 o'clock in the evening, or 10 o'clock in some places when the polls close, and then your work starts. You're then around for 9, 10 hours or longer when you're looking at the count and chasing the ballot boxes right up to a point of conclusion. And then you get to your hotel, could be 5, 6 in the morning. And please don't forget, at 8 in the morning you have a debriefing session when you've already sent your forms off that you've been filling, and then you have a debriefing. It's really exhausting. Now, if people who are watching this would like to be international observers, then write to the OSCE department of your foreign ministry and volunteer. And I think you will find it can be really difficult. Very enjoyable, but very demanding physically and intellectually. And in some elections, it can be quite dangerous. In Albania 10 years ago, observers were fired on. But it's worthwhile, and observers help promote democracy throughout the world. And Belgian people or Dutch people or British people should be proud of the fact that their members of parliament are prepared to go off to faraway countries, often travelling economy class and enduring a rather difficult period. And then they come back and they get criticised. I think that's very unfair.
Zo, 8:30 s'avonds, niet uitgeput, maar toch. Korte nacht gehad, einde van dag 1, voorlopig toch. Alleen ontbijt gehad en nadien de ganse dag. Dus ontbijt rond, ik weet niet meer hoe duur het was, 8:30. En het is nu 8:30 in de avond. Ik denk dat ik me een beetje ga wassen. En dan hapje eten en bedje in. Want morgen vroeg om 9 uur is daar alweer de eerste briefing met de long time observers. Dat zijn dus de mensen die al een week of 2 hier zijn. En waar wij dus meer details gaan van vernemen. Slaap wel.